Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my birth stories. Now I was going to do a birth story video on just Knox's birth. I started thinking about it and I've had a lot of questions about how my births were different with all of my kids. So I figured I would do one video with all 4 of my birth stories and talking about how different they were. Just how every baby and pregnancy and postpartum, all of those things are different. So are the labor and deliveries and the things that can happen. So I figured this would be great if you are pregnant for the first time and you don't know what to expect. These would be 4 different ways that you could have your baby, and then there are definitely more than that. It's not like I've done all of them. I've never had a C-section, so that is one that I can't talk about. Before we get started, I just want to say definitely make sure you give this video a big thumbs up if you like pregnancy content. That lets me know that you guys are really into this kind of stuff. And then obviously if you haven't subscribed yet, I would really love it if you would subscribe and become a part of our Soul Tribe Mama family, because we love you guys over here, especially all you mamas out there. I love connecting with y'all as well, so definitely leave me a comment down below if you're pregnant, if it's your first pregnancy, if it's your 5th pregnancy, whatever it is, I would love to know. And let me go ahead and start this video with a little bit of background from me. So my name is Jessica and I'm 34 years old right now. I literally just turned 34 about a couple weeks ago. And my first baby, I was 25 years old when he was born. My first baby was a surprise. I was told that I could not have kids, and if I did, it was going to be very, very hard for me to try to conceive. I've had lots of problems. I can't even tell y'all what the problems were because I still to this day, we do not know what was wrong with me. I went to about 15 different specialists and doctors. This was started when I was about 19 years old. I was having a lot of pain. I would bleed for like a month or 2 and then I wouldn't, and I would have horrible pains, and then my uterus got infected a couple times and it got enlarged, I guess you would say, like 4 times the size of what it was supposed to be. I've had the cyst, I've had all kinds of different things go on down there, but mainly it was just very painful. And so I was always in the doctor, like trying to figure out what was wrong. They would put me on all these different birth controls to try to regulate it. I was on antibiotics for different infections that they thought I had. Whew, y'all, you name it, I've probably done it. I've probably done all the testing and everything, and they still could not figure out what was wrong with me. And I remember the last specialist I went to, and I thought for sure that she was the one, like she was the one that was going to figure it out. She was the one that was going to help me. And at the time I wasn't ready to have kids. I wasn't in a relationship and saying, oh, I want to have a baby. But she did tell me in that moment, she was like, I'm so sorry, but all of your blood work and all of these tests have come back and there's nothing wrong. Like I can't figure out what it is, and I'm so sorry. Like I will try my best to try to keep going with this and figure out if there's something else that we can do. But as of right now, she's like, I have no clue what is going on. And all I kept thinking was, how do you not know? Like, how is it that nobody can figure this out? I can't be the only one in this world that has this problem, right? It was very frustrating, but I remember so clearly feeling so defeated and so sad. And then on top of that, she throws in, because of all these problems and because of the different things that they saw that were going on in there, she said, if you ever want children, it's probably going to be very hard for you to conceive a baby. And again, y'all, in that moment, I wasn't like ready to have a baby, but I've always wanted to be a mom. Growing up, I knew that I wanted to have a big family. I wanted to have kids one day, and it just like gutted me. I was like, are you kidding? Like on top of all these problems, when I finally get to that chance, I'm not going to be able to do this, or it's going to be hard on me. I was very sad. And I had been with somebody for 7 years, and it was not a good relationship. It was a very volatile relationship. So I'm very grateful that I never had a baby with that man. At the same time, there were so many times that I should have gotten pregnant because we didn't use protection. I wasn't on birth control because they were, you know, all of these things were going on with me and we were trying to figure things out. That really kind of, as I started thinking about it, I was like, I mean, I guess she's right, because how many times that I could have gotten pregnant and it didn't happen, and I never even had like a scare. So it was very defeating. And then fast forward and I meet my husband. We'd been dating for about a year. He actually went to Venezuela for work, and he got in a car accident while he was there and cracked his head open, pretty much is what it was. And so they had to do immediate brain surgery or head surgery on him. And so his company flew me out to be with him because he couldn't fly home to do it. and then he would have to stay there in Venezuela until he healed enough to be able to get on a plane to come home. I flew out there. It was a very scary experience. We might do a video on this later on, and I'll go in depth about everything that happened and how that kind of shaped the start of our love story and our relationship. But thank God that he made it, and that he was fine, and he was okay, and he was alive. But while we were there, you know, things happen, and we were together in a hotel room for like 3 weeks before we could go home. So you're bored in a hotel room. I mean, what are you gonna do, right? Like, it's so bad, y'all. It's so bad. And we came home, you know, living our lives and going back to work and all of that. About a month later, you know, I had been working out, you know, I'd been with a girlfriend. We were on this like workout kick. We were trying to stay healthy and work out and eat good. That whole time I was feeling bloated. I was constantly hungry. And then I started noticing that my nipples were sore, my boobs were sore. And I remember telling my friend that, and she was like, "Oh my God, you're pregnant." And I was like, no, I can't get pregnant. You know, like that, it's not gonna happen like that for me. Well, I waited 2 weeks after she said that to go get a pregnancy test. And I don't know why. I don't know if it was because I was nervous or I just didn't believe it. I don't know. But I finally took one, and sure enough, it says positive. Right then and there, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is really happening. And even though I'd always wanted it, I was not ready. For one, I wanted to be married first, and we were not married. Number two, I was terrified. Like, I remember seeing that and being terrified, and then at the same time being like, this can't be possible. Like, they said it wasn't possible, it wasn't going to be easy, and this has never happened to me before, and you know, all of these things are going through your brain. So I actually did not tell my husband, but he was my boyfriend at the time. I didn't even tell him. He was asleep. I didn't wake him up to tell him. I took the test with me. I went to go ride a horse, which I ride horses, and I haven't in a while since I've had my last baby, but I used to ride all the time. So I was on my way to the barn, and I almost thought about going to the clinic. And I don't believe in abortion. I've just been brought up that way, and in my mind, I was always like, you know, that's not what I believe in. I would never do that. Y'all, for that minute that I was driving, all I kept thinking was, I should probably go and just see what my options are. And even though it was killing me inside, because it was like, I don't want to do this, but I'm so afraid. Like, I'm not ready for this. How am I going to tell him? How am I going to tell my mom? Is he going to even want a baby? Like, how? I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking and what I'm doing, but I decided to go ride first and just go ride, clear my mind, and then on the way home, I would go to the clinic. And that whole time I rode, y'all, I swear it was a God thing. Like, God put that in my mind to just go ride your horse and chill out for a minute, because it was like this freeing thing. I just remember feeling free, and afterwards feeling happy. I guess, you know, those endorphins come out because you're doing something that you love. On the way home, the more I thought about it, I just kept thinking, like, this is such a blessing, because all this time that I've had all these problems, and then on top of that thinking I couldn't have a child, and now I'm pregnant. How is this possible other than a miracle? Like, this has to be a miracle. Even though I was still scared, I just kept thinking, like, I'm so excited for this. Like, I can't believe this is really happening right now. Of course, you know, timing was not right, but that alone, it was just like that one thing. I just couldn't believe it was happening. It was just a blessing. It was such a blessing and a miracle. And I remember feeling so excited and happy. So I was able to go through all those motions before I told him, which is really funny, because when I told him, I was so calm about it because I'd already gone through all the emotions. He was like, no, you're not, you're lying. Like, you're lying because you're not acting weird. Like, you're not acting sad or excited or freaked out. And I was like, yeah, because I've already taken like 4 hours to figure this out. But thankfully, of course, he was really happy. He was really excited. And I just wanted to start that. I know this really isn't like that technically is not like the birth story, but I just want to start that because all of you mamas out there that are watching these videos because you're wanting this one day, you're wanting to have a baby one day, and either you medically have been told that you can't, or whatever it may be, just know that if it's in your heart and it is something that you have known about and wanted, that is a promise from God, and God will make it happen. Whether you have the baby yourself, whether it's through adoption, whether it's through I don't know, a surrogate, whatever it may be, if that is in your heart, it's there for a reason, and that is God's promise to you. So just know that, because like I said, I truly believed that this was not going to be possible. Not only that, but my pregnancies were great. I didn't have problems throughout my pregnancies. Medically, I didn't have, you know, like preeclampsia or scares of miscarriages or any of that kind of stuff. I just wanted to start that with, hopefully this gives you hope that if it can happen for me, that it can happen for you. And don't ever give up hope, and always have faith and pray about it, and just know that if that has been in your heart, that is a promise. Now that I've got that out, let's get to, so with my first son, I was about 24, 25. Yeah, I was 25 when I had him. I'm pregnant with this baby. I gained a ton of weight with him, y'all. Like I don't know what happened, but I was just eating it up, eating everything in sight, whatever I wanted. You know that whole saying, well, I'm pregnant, I can do whatever I want. You know, I can eat this because I'm pregnant. The baby wants it. You know, that whole excuses. It was like 55 pounds that I gained with him. But still no medical problems. He was growing great. He wasn't overweight by any means. It was just me. I've been a hairstylist for about 15 years. I don't even know anymore. It's probably been longer than that, but I lost count of how many years it's been. I was working as a hairstylist, and my best friend and I went to hair school together. And so we would do each other's hair. Actually, she still does my hair to this day, and I do her hair. So that's still going on. But at the time, I really wanted to get my hair done because I was getting closer to my due date. And of course, this is my first baby. So I think that you go to your due date and then have your baby. Like, why would you have a due date? You know, I didn't know that you could really have a baby beforehand, before, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 weeks early. So I was right around like 37 to 38 weeks pregnant. And so I drive out to her salon where she has her little spot, and we get ready to do each other's hair. We're talking, we're hanging out. It's like girl time. And my hair, y'all, was looking gross. I had been waiting for this moment. I thought this will be, you know, the last time I do. I'm gonna do my hair, and then hopefully, you know, it'll be good and ready for when baby comes. I hadn't taken a shower. Like, my hair was dirty. I was just waiting for this to happen to like start that, you know. So we're doing each other's hair. I start on her hair first, and I'm putting her highlights in. And I even have a picture. I keep this picture, and I love it so much because I have a picture that she took. I'm standing behind her with this huge belly, like to the side of her, with my arms up doing the foils in her hair, and she's sitting in the chair, and she took a picture of me doing her hair, and this humongous belly, huge belly. And that was the day that I went into labor. And I just remember how crazy that was, that I wasn't even near my hospital or home. I was out with her, and I'm doing her hair, and all of a sudden we're just chatting it up, and I feel like I'm peeing myself uncontrollably, like trickles, like little tiny bits are coming out. And I'm like, what the heck is this? So as she's talking, there was another girl there, so we're all talking. I'm like, hold on, I gotta go to the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom, and I sit down, and I feel like, you know, it's still coming out. So I'm like, okay, I have to pee, you know, baby's sitting on the bladder. And I'm sitting there, and it's like not stopping. And then finally I stand up and I wipe, and then I go to wash my hands, and it keeps coming. And I'm like, okay, what the heck is going on? Like, I literally thought, like, I just can't stop peeing because the baby's just sitting on the bladder, like it's just coming out. So I take some like toilet paper, and I wrap it up, and I put it there. And then I come out, and I ask one of the girls, I'm like, do you have a pad or something, because I feel like I'm peeing myself. So she gives me a pad, and I put the pad on, and I come back out, and I start to try to finish her hair. And I start telling this lady that's there with us, talking to her, I think she was the salon owner. And I was like, I just feel like I can't stop peeing. I'm like, I have to put this pad on. I feel like the baby's sitting on. And she's like, well, how far along are you? And I told her, and she goes, I think your water just broke. And I was like, what? My water? And you know, you think back to the movies, how it like gushes out. Like, that's what I was thinking. This was like teeny drops, just like slowly coming out, but never ending, and to the point where it starts building up. Like, it started going down my leg. My pants were starting to get soaked all the way down to my feet, and my underwear was soaked. The pad was soaked. Like, there was nothing else left to soak it up with. Thankfully, I was wearing like black comfy pants, so you couldn't really tell that it was wet. And thankfully the salon, it was on the day that they were closed, so it was just us there. It wasn't a bunch of people. So I'm standing there, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. And she's like, no, you probably need to go to the hospital. And I was like, but I feel fine. Like, I feel totally fine. I didn't feel any pain. I didn't feel like fatigue. I was happy. I had energy. Like, I felt totally fine, except for I feel like I'm peeing myself. So I go ahead and finish her hair, and she's like freaking out, my best friend. Her name's Jessica as well. And she's like, you gotta go to the hospital. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I was like, well, I feel fine, so maybe I can wait out. Like, I probably shouldn't go right away, right? And so I get a towel to sit down. I'm like, can you at least, I was like, can you just do my color real quick? And she goes, Jessica, you cannot, like, this is gonna take an hour longer. Like, you have to go. I was like, all right, okay, if you're not gonna do my color, at least wash my hair for me, please, and dry it because it looks so gross. And she's like laughing at me like, I can't believe you right now. I said, please just wash my hair and dry it and style it and then I'll go. She's like, okay. So she starts doing that and she's like, are you gonna call Nick? And I was like, well, not yet, because if I call him now, he's gonna freak out and I'm not even near the home or the hot, like what is he gonna do? So I waited a little while. I let her do my hair and we were almost done with my hair, and then I called him and I was like, hey, I think my water broke. And he, of course, as I knew he would, he was like on the phone like, oh my God, okay, well, I'm gonna grab this, I'm gonna grab that, okay, I've got this. And he's like trying to grab everything, you know, the car seat and the bag and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, I'm getting in the car right now. And I was like, babe, I'm not even close to the hospital. Like, you're gonna get there way before me. You're gonna be waiting on me because I have to drive from here to the hospital. And he's like, okay. Well, of course he didn't listen to me. He ended up leaving right away. He brought everything with him. And I said, all I need, and I even told him, because I literally thought, they're not gonna tell me I'm having a baby yet. Like, they're probably gonna say, they're gonna check me and then they're gonna say, go home and just relax for a little bit, and then when you know start feeling contractions and stuff, then come back. So I told him, I said, we don't need all that stuff, just bring me a change of pants and underwear because mine are soaked, and a towel, I think I said, or something. He's like, okay. Of course he brought everything anyways. He's a good husband. I get in my car, I put a towel down in my car and I sit down. I'm driving. It's like a beautiful day out. I remember that. I remember how beautiful the day was, and the sun was out and the breeze was so beautiful. I had my windows rolled down while I was driving, you know, listening to music. So I call my best friend in Colorado and I tell her what's happening, and she's like, wait, how are you talking to me? You're driving yourself to the hospital? And I was like, well, yeah, I'm like 30 minutes away. She goes, what? How? What? I was like, well, I don't feel pain. I don't feel anything. I feel totally fine. I feel happy, other than my seat is now soaked. She was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you're doing this. I drive myself to the hospital. I pull up, I meet my husband. He's like got everything. He's got all the bags and stuff. And I'm like, babe, literally, like, I just need my pants. Like, it's fine. So we go in and they get our paperwork done and they send us back into triage, and you get undressed and they go to check you. And then she says, okay, we're gonna start, we're gonna go ahead and hook you up, and then we're gonna start getting you prepared. And I was like, prepared? For what? She goes, well, you're having a baby. Like, this is it. You're gonna have a baby soon. And I was like, what? I don't feel anything though. Like, I feel totally normal. And she's like, well, your water broke. You don't have any contractions yet. So what we're gonna end up doing is putting you on Pitocin, and it's going to, you know, get the process going. And I was like, okay. Oh, by the way, y'all, I guess I need to mention that I did get checked probably the week before this happened. So I was like 36, or right at the beginning of my 37th week, and I was already 4 centimeters dilated. So, and my doctor had even said, like, well, you're 4 centimeters dilated, but that doesn't mean anything. Like, you could probably go another 2 weeks before you have a baby. So I knew I was dilated, but I, you know, again, I really didn't think that it was gonna happen yet. So they checked me. I think I'd moved up to a 5. I was like 5 centimeters dilated when I got there. And so she said, okay, we're gonna get you guys in a room and we're gonna set you up with Pitocin. And I was like, well, what is that? She goes, well, it's just something that's going to keep the process going and make sure that, you know, you're getting to that point of full dilation. And I said, well, is it gonna hurt? And she goes, well, it can hurt because you're making it go quicker, but, you know, you'll see your baby sooner. And I said, okay, fine, you know, I can handle it, it'll be good. So they set me up, all of this is happening, and I'm literally thinking, like, she said it's gonna make it go by quicker. I'm thinking we're gonna have a baby in like 4 hours, you know, like, things are gonna start moving and everything's gonna be going. Well, that was not the case. I'm sitting there for like the first hour and a half and I'm like, you know what, I'm really hungry. So I tell my husband, like, can you just run up to the road to Culver's and get me like a burger? And the nurse was standing there and she goes, oh no, you can't do that. And I was like, what? I'm hungry. Like, we're not having a baby yet. She was like, no, I'm sorry. Like, now that you're admitted, you can't have any food until you have this baby. I was so hungry, y'all, because I had not eaten since breakfast. And I was gonna be getting lunch with my friend. We were doing our hair, but we hadn't gotten lunch yet. So a little tip for you guys, if you think you need to go to the hospital and you haven't eaten yet, on the way to the hospital, pick you up something to eat and eat it on the way. Because once you get there and they start hooking you up, they will not let you have anything but like ice chips until you have a baby. And the reason for that is because if they have to do some kind of surgery or a C-section or anything and they have to start hooking you up to any stuff, obviously they want to make sure your stomach is pretty empty, especially because you don't want to like throw up and all of that kind of stuff. So that's mainly the reason why, but it definitely sucks. So I always tell everybody, ever since that happened to me, I was like, anybody that I know that's pregnant, I'm like, just make sure that you get food on the way to the hospital or before you leave your house to go to the hospital. Eat something, because once you get there, you're not going to get anything until you have that baby, and you don't know how long it could be. It could be a couple hours, or it could be 25, 28, 30 hours. You don't know. For me, I think it was about 28 hours before I finally had food from the moment I had eaten before. Anyways, so I'm sitting there like, oh great. So I'm eating these ice chips all day and all night, just hoping, praying that I'm pretending like it's pizza or something. My husband's there, he falls asleep. I'm talking to all my family members on the phone, you know, they're wanting to know what's happening. My mom's like, should I come up there now? And I'm like, no, nothing's happening yet, you know, we'll just see, I'll let you know. The time goes on, hours go by, it starts becoming nighttime, and they're like, just get some rest because you need your rest, you need your strength. Okay. And I'm laying there, and every time I would finally fall asleep in a good position, they would lose his heartbeat on the monitors. So then the nurse would come in and then move all the stuff on me, and then I would wake up and I'd be like uncomfortable. And then I would switch sides or turn this way or turn that way and try to get comfortable, and then it would happen again, and they would just keep coming in and doing that. And I was like, so I could really never get sleep. I tried, but I just couldn't. And then I remember we'd probably been there for like 6 hours. At least that's what it felt like to me. And the nurse kept coming in, and she kept saying, are you okay? Do you need any medicine? You know, and she kept asking me, do you need medicine? Do you need medicine? Do you need any medicine? And I was like, for what? Finally, like the 4th time, I was like, why are you saying that? What would I need medicine for? And she was like, pain medicine. She said, because you're having contractions, and I just wanted to know, like, are you okay? Are you in pain? You know, we can help you out there if you need it. And I was like, what? So I don't feel anything at all. I don't feel, and she was like, are you serious? She goes, you've been having contractions every 4 minutes. You don't feel that? And I said, no, I did not know anything was, I've literally been sitting here forever thinking we're gonna have a baby, and nothing has happened to me, or at least that's how I felt. And I really couldn't believe that I couldn't feel these things. So that time keeps going. She goes, well, you just let me know. If you need it, you let me know, because I already know you've been having them, so I won't even ask questions. Like, if you need something, I'll totally bring it for you. I said, okay. So about like 4 more hours, I swear, go by. It just took forever, y'all. It's the next morning. I'm talking to my mom on the phone, you know, and I start feeling like I have to go to the bathroom. So I tell my husband, like, will you help me up? I need to go to the bathroom. And he goes, well, are you sure you need to go? Are you sure that's not the baby? Because they told us, you know, the baby's going to be putting pressure down there, so it's going to feel like you have to go, number 2. And I was like, no, I swear, I know it is. I know I have to go. And he's like, okay. So of course he's thinking, like, please don't have this baby in the toilet. Like, it'll be fine. So I go in there and I sit down, and I was able to go number 2. Just, it was barely a little bit, but I am now, like, after that I was like, I'm glad I did, because that probably would have come out when I was pushing, which is fine, because I've had that happen before with my other pregnancy, my other labor and deliveries, and you never know that that's happening. The only reason I would know is because somebody watched it and told me. I went to the bathroom, and then of course that's when I really started feeling the pressure, and I started feeling things moving, and I started to feel a little bit of cramping. And I remember that happening, thinking like, huh, is this what contractions feel like? And about an hour later, they get real intense, and that's when I probably felt 3 really bad ones. Like, I remember hanging on to the side and trying to breathe through them, and I was on the phone with my mom, and she was like, hello, hello, and I couldn't talk because I was in pain. And right when that happened, the nurse walked in, and she looked at me and she goes, oh yeah, she's feeling them now, I'm gonna go get it. And she just went and got the anesthesiologist and came in, and she said, yeah, she's been having them all night long, she's feeling them now, let's get that thing. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. So I really only felt like 3 or 4 contractions. And then I remember them coming in, they put the epidural in. I didn't even feel the epidural go in at all. And then I laid there, and then it started to work, you know, my legs started to get kind of numb. From then on, I was like happy as can be. Like, I had no pain. And that was kind of the moment I knew, like, okay, now we're getting there. Like, we're finally getting to this point of having a baby. I call my mom to come, my mom shows up, like, all these, I had a lot of people the first time around. We had all of our friends were there waiting. They were in the room until they told us to start pushing, then they left and they stood outside the door. And then I had like a bunch of I probably had like 15 people in the room with my first baby. My husband's best friend was in there. He was the one videotaping. He stood behind me and my husband. So it wasn't anything, you couldn't see anything down there, but you could see like everybody's reactions and the baby popping up and putting him on my chest and all that kind of stuff, which is what I wanted. So he stayed, my mom was there, my sister was there, of course the doctors, the nurses. We had a bunch of nurses that were in school practicing, so they were there to watch and witness and I guess take notes and stuff. And then we have the baby's nurse, all of that. So they all come in, my doctor comes in, she's like, okay, we're gonna get to this point, we're gonna start pushing. I'm like, okay. We had the TV on behind her, and I remember there being a Outback Steakhouse commercial and looking at it going, oh my god, I cannot wait to get this baby out because I'm so hungry right now. And the whole time, you know, they're like, okay, push. So I push. I had learned through doing Pilates, when you push, to act like you're rolling, like you do a rolling crunch, engage your core muscles from the top down to like push baby down. And so I do feel like that helped me a lot throughout my labor and deliveries to help get my babies out quicker, and really just to help you get through the pushes without having to push a million times. So I was working on that. Like I remember my mind always, the minute they would start counting to push, I would be like thinking that, like, okay, tummy muscles, tummy muscles, tummy muscles, tummy muscles. Trying to think about it that way and really concentrate. But I remember thinking I loved it because I didn't feel any pain, but I could feel pressure. I could feel where he was. Every time he would move down, I could feel exactly where he was sitting until he got all the way to where he was crowning, and I could feel all of that, but it wasn't a painful feeling. It was just a knowing almost, and like the pressure and the I don't even know how to explain that. But I remember laughing in between pushes. Like I would push, and then we would talk for a minute and I would be laughing and talking. And I remember my mom going, how are you laughing and being so calm right now? And I was like, what? I don't know. Like, I don't feel any pain. I don't feel nervous. I don't feel anything. I'm just ready to see my baby. And that's just kind of how it went. And I remember pushing 5 pushes or maybe about 6 pushes, feeling him right there. And I remember the doctor finally saying like, okay, he's literally right here, but he's kind of stuck and his head is kind of, you know, stuck right there. And she's like, if I cut you, if I do an episiotomy, he'll probably be out like that. I said, okay, what's an episiotomy? Like, y'all, this is how I am. Like, I didn't research stuff. I didn't look things up. Like, I just went with the flow. So I had no idea what this was. And she said, I'm just gonna cut a little slit right there, and it's just gonna help, you know, open it up a little bit more so that baby can come out. She goes, it'll just be like a couple stitches, you know. And I was like, yeah, okay, that's cool. And literally, just like she said, she did a little tiny slit, and I pushed one push, and he was like, boop, right out. And I do remember that was the only time that I felt the most, because the minute she pulled him out, it was like a feeling of collapse. Like I just felt my stomach go and just collapse. That was the weirdest thing to me. But so she pulls him out, you know, hands him to me, and his little head is a cone head. He has a cone head. And I remember my husband's face looking at him like, what is wrong with our baby? He had no idea. And that is one of the reasons why she said she wanted to do the episiotomy, was because he had been sitting there forever. And of course, that's why his head was a little cone, because we had pushed a couple times and he hadn't moved too much. And so the head starts to form that way for the birth canal. They laid him on my chest, and I remember her sewing me up, and I could feel the tugging from her sewing me up. But other than that, it was probably one of the best experiences, except for I hated waiting forever in the hospital, like not getting to eat and waiting forever and ever, thinking we were gonna have a baby a lot quicker with Pitocin, and it took forever is what I felt like. But other than that, y'all, like I had the best experience. Like it was literally the best. And I know that friends of mine that weren't pregnant at the time, but then it did later, they were like, man, we watched your pregnancy, we listened to you and saw you, and ours were nothing like that. Like you totally lied. I was like, I swear I didn't lie. Like this is how it was for me the first time around, which was so deceitful because, you know, of course, going into my second and third and fourth ones, I was like, oh, I already know what it's going to be, and it's going to be great and perfect, and I love it. And which, don't get me wrong, I still do love it, but it was definitely nowhere near like my first one. With him, the only problem I did have with him was he didn't latch very well for breastfeeding. So we had a very hard time with breastfeeding, and he had acid reflux really bad. Like he would stop breathing if he was laid on flat on his back. So he had to sleep upright at night. There was just, you know, all of those things, first time parent things that you're learning, all these new things you didn't know about, and you're scared about every single one. But the only thing I remember is that my back, right where they put the epidural in, has always been sore there to this day. So I remember feeling that pain when the medicine started leaving my body. I could feel that right there, and then of course the stitches, and that was probably the worst part. Like everything else was sore, but it went away pretty quickly. The stitches is like the worst because you go through that healing process and you get to that point where they're itching, but you don't want to itch it. Other than that, like with him, everything was just so good with my body, and the way that we went through labor and delivery, it was amazing, and I enjoyed it. I was able to be present, and I remember every moment and how I felt, and having all of our friends and family there. I remember everybody running in afterwards when they allowed them to come in, and I mean my bed, like people just standing around my bed just like staring at this baby. They were so excited, and of course a lot of them were friends that we were the first of our friends to have kids, so none of them had kids, none of them were married, you know, any of that kind of stuff. So they were all excited. And then my postpartum with him was good, except for I did go through postpartum depression with him, but not until he was almost a year old is when that started happening for me. I feel like I was feeling depressed here and there throughout that first year because I was exhausted, and it was my first baby, and I was trying to get used to all these things, and he wasn't latching, and I wanted to breastfeed and pump, but it was killing me, and I didn't know enough about it to like have a schedule or to learn anything on that. So I thought you put the baby on there, they feed, and that's it. And it was not that easy. And I had a horrible struggle with that. I definitely put myself down because I couldn't breastfeed him well and made myself feel bad because of that, which is horrible to do. But that's what I felt then. And then, you know, trying to lose the weight and all of that. I definitely went hardcore in the gym for that. And I ended up looking way too skinny. Y'all have heard about that in the last video, I think. But yeah, that was my first experience with my baby Georgie. He is now 8 years old. So my next one was baby Abel, and he is 5 years old. He'll be 6 this year. And so with him, he was 2.5 years later is when I had him. So for baby number 2, that is the one baby we actually tried for. I knew that I wanted to have 2 kids at least and have them close in age so that they could play together and grow up together. So I remember, you know, telling my husband I wanted to try, and he was like, okay, you know, I'm totally down to have 2. We're trying, y'all. Months go by, and I remember getting pregnancy test after pregnancy test and never getting a positive, and just thinking, oh my gosh, like this seriously is happening now, you know? I'm reliving what I felt before when I heard her say, you're gonna have a hard time having children, and thinking, well, how did I get pregnant the first time? Like, how did it happen like that? I was so stressed out over it and overwhelmed because of it, and I just kept on overthinking it, really. And finally 8 months go by, and I'm like, you know what, forget it, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, I'm just gonna have to have faith and know that, you know, this was God's plan. He only wanted us to have the one, and that's what it is, and I have to be okay with that. And I would pray about it and pray about it and pray about it all the time. And then I remember Christmas Day, we wake up, we're doing gifts with Georgie. We had a friend that was staying with us at the time. He was here, and I remember I kept feeling nauseous. Like, I kept feeling so nauseous, but I was never throwing up, but I just did not feel good. And so I told my husband, I said, I'm gonna go get some Pepto from CVS. And then while I was there, I was like, it like clicked to me, and I was like, maybe I should get a pregnancy test. So I buy the pregnancy test, and I'm on my way home, and the whole time I'm just praying, and I'm like, it's probably not, I don't even know why I got one of these. I'm probably not pregnant, but, and I remember thinking, okay, Lord, this is the last one. This is the last one I'm gonna buy. And if it's not positive, I'm okay with that. I'm happy with my life right now. I'm grateful for my baby that I have, and I'm okay with that. And that's all I said. And I went home, I took my Pepto, and I went to the bathroom, and I took the test. And even when I took it, I set it on the floor, and I was just like, I didn't even want to look at it, because I was like, I know it's going to be negative. I know it's not going to say I'm pregnant. And I go to leave the bathroom, like, well, let me pick it up real quick. And so I pick it up, and I look at it, and it says positive. And I just remember I burst into tears, and I just start crying my eyes out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really happening right now? I'm gonna cry. I just remember being so excited, and I was bawling, like I was really crying a lot. And I come out to tell my husband, and he's looking at me like, oh my God, what's wrong? You know, like, are you okay? And I'm like, look, babe, look. And I show it to him, and his face, he sees it, and he's smiling, and he looks at me, and he's like, am I supposed to be happy about this, or are we supposed to be sad? Like, what? I don't want to, he didn't want to do the wrong thing and then me be mad that he was happy about it and I was sad about it, or, you know, the other way around. And I was like, no, 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 I'm so happy. I'm so happy. And he was like, okay, okay, that's what I thought that's what we wanted, you know? And I was like, no, no, I'm happy. And I just, that day, y'all, like, I remember calling my family and telling them. It was awesome. So I get pregnant with baby Abel. Again, pregnancy was great. I didn't gain very much weight with him at all. And it was during the summer. His birthday's August 1st, so we were at the pool all the time. Like, I have pictures of me. I look like a beached whale, sitting out like this with a big old belly on the side of the pool with my legs in the water. With him, I remember when labor started, I was sleeping in my bed. I literally woke up from period cramps, like the normal, what you would feel if you were gonna have a really bad period and you start cramping really bad at nights and it like wakes you up out of your sleep. Literally for a split second, y'all, I forgot I was pregnant, and I thought, I gotta get up and take some ibuprofen because these cramps are horrible. And I got up and I went to the bathroom, and then I went, oh wait, like, I wouldn't have a period right now, I'm pregnant. Like, what am I thinking? So I think, well, let me get in the bathtub, because usually if I'm cramping, I always get in the bathtub. So I'm like, let me just get in a warm bath and just chill for a minute. So I'm in there for a while, I'm just laying. About an hour goes by and I'm thinking, these cramps aren't going away and they're starting to hurt a lot. So then I'm like, could this be contractions? Because again, y'all, with my first, I didn't really feel them other than like 2 or 3, but that was when they were super intense. So I didn't know what contractions really felt like and what they were supposed to be like if they were consistent and stuff like that. So I tried to Google stuff, and then I had a pregnancy app, and I remember on the app they had a contractions tracker timer thing. So I was like, well, let me do that and just see what it says. So I start tracking it. You know, it says to start the timer when you feel the pain, and then when the pain stops, you stop the timer, and then when it starts again, you keep doing that, and then it tells you, you know, how far apart they are and how long each one has been on average. So I do that for about like 20-30 minutes, and they start getting worse and worse and worse. Unless I was doing it wrong, they weren't really consistent. So I was like, well, okay, it can't be contractions if they're not consistent. So I finally text my husband's aunt. She's been a baby nurse for a long time, like 20 or 30 years, something like that. So I text her and I'm telling her, like, this is what I'm feeling. Are these contractions? And if so, am I supposed to go to the hospital, or when do I go to the hospital with these contractions? And she says, oh, they're definitely contractions. You know, time them. She said, when they get to 8 minutes apart, I would go to the hospital because you never know how quickly they're gonna go. And I'm like, okay. Well, by then they were at 5 minutes apart. And so I told her that. I said, they're 5 minutes apart. And she goes, you should have already been to the hospital. And I was like, oh crap. So I start getting out of the bathtub and I start getting myself ready. I put my makeup on and I put my clothes on and I put my stuff together that I wanted to bring. And then I go out to wake my husband up, and I'm like waking him up. I'm like, hey, we're having a baby. And it was 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember that. I'm pretty sure, like, we need to go to the hospital soon. I'm having contractions. The baby's here. And so he gets up. He gets coffee, he goes to the bathroom, he starts to get ready, and I'm like, he's like, just lay down, you know, I'm gonna get stuff together. And I said, okay. So I'm laying there, and I remember thinking, why is he taking so long? Like, he's literally like dilly-dallying. He's like slowly getting his coffee, going to the bathroom, getting his clothes on, brushing his teeth, and then he finally comes out and he goes, he's holding up this piece of paper that I had made a checklist. He goes, do you want to go over this list with me real quick so we make sure? And I remember looking at him, I said, no, just get in the car. He was like, oh, okay. So he gets everything, we go to the car, and I remember, y'all, I go to get in the car, and I go to sit down in the seat, and I couldn't sit down because it hurt so bad. And I was literally the whole drive like this, I was like leaning my arm up against the door and holding onto the handle and sitting like this, and every single time I would get one, I'd be like, ooh. And he was like, oh my gosh. By the time we got everything in the car, got in the car and started driving to the hospital, they were 1 minute apart. And it was bad. It was so painful. I had never been in pain like that in my entire life. And I remember thinking, women have babies like this without any medication? I can't, there's no way. And all I kept thinking was like, okay, just get to the hospital, they're gonna check me, they're gonna give me the epidural, I'm gonna be fine. Because the last time I got the epidural, it was perfect. I didn't feel one thing. I was having a great time and I loved it. So to the hospital, they try to sit me in a wheelchair and I can barely sit down. They get me back in the back, and we had Georgie with us, so he has to come with us, and we were waiting on my mom to get to the hospital to grab him. And so he's, poor baby, he's standing in the triage room where she's about to check me, and mommy is in pain. And I felt so bad for my baby. He doesn't remember this at all. He was only like 2 years old. I remember thinking like, come on mom, hurry up, get here, because I don't want my baby in here like traumatized from seeing his mom in so much pain. And this nurse, you know, they're very like nonchalant, very slow, and because some people come in there and they think they're having a baby and they're not, and I understand that, but I was like, no, I know this baby, I can feel him like coming out. She sticks her arm up there, and usually it takes them a couple seconds, like they go like this, they turn a little bit to check, and then they come out and they're like, tell you what's up. This nurse was like whole arm up in there and just kept reaching, like she was reaching for the baby to pull him out. I don't even know, y'all, but I remember being off the table like, oh my god, why are you doing this to me? And I kept thinking like, why is she still checking? It only takes a couple seconds, like why are you still doing that? She was up there for a long time and it hurt, and she finally was like, she got done and she goes, oh yeah, you're at 8 centimeters, so I'm gonna call. And I was like, you think? Oh my god, I'm like in so much pain. I already told you this baby's coming out. They wheel me into a room. You know, they're doing everything. I remember the 2 nurses I got were great because they were like, they were trying to go as fast as they could. They were getting the IV and they were doing this. And I think when one of the girls that did the IV, either they couldn't find my vein right or something, but she had to do it like 4 times because the blood kept coming out, and like it was just a mess. And all I kept thinking, I just looked at her and I kept saying like, please, I need the epidural. And she goes, I know honey, I know, I'm sorry, we're backed up. It was like a full moon or some crap like that, you know. We're backed up. I told them, you know, you're top priority, we need them now. And I was like, please, please. And my poor husband, I remember him looking at me like in shock, because I was just, I looked like the Exorcist. I'm like laying on the bed, like rolling my head. It was like rolling and like, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna die. And I remember for a split second there praying to God, please just take me and let my baby live, because I can't take it anymore. I don't think I can do this. And I kept thinking, if they don't get me this epidural soon, I'm gonna have to do it without it, because this baby is coming so fast and I can't. And I literally thought that, I can't do it. I'm not gonna make it. Like it's not gonna happen. And then I remember feeling like I had to pee really bad. Like the pain was so bad, but I was like holding my pee in because it hurt. That makes sense, I don't know. And so I told her that, and she said, well, can you get up? And I said, no, I cannot move. Like I'm stuck to this bed laying down. I can't move, I can't bend, I'm hurting. Just bring me a bedpan or something and stick it under me and I'll pee. And so she brings me the bedpan, and right when she does that, she comes in, and I swear, y'all, I swear I could feel his head coming out. And I was like, he's coming, he's coming, he's coming. And so she lays it down and she checks me and she goes, well, he's almost there, but he's not there yet. And I was like, oh my god, if y'all don't do this soon. And I remember her on the thing, and the nurse came, I could hear her outside the door on the walkie-talkie saying, get the anesthesiologist down here now. We have 2 girls, they need it now. And I was like, oh, please. I remember her saying like, it'll only be a couple minutes. And I remember thinking, I'm having a contraction every minute. So if you're telling me it's a couple or 3 minutes, that means I'm gonna have 3 contractions before this comes. And I've already had, I don't know, like 25 or 30 or something. And I can't go any longer. Like I literally can't. I'm gonna faint and die. I don't know. Something's gonna happen. It's not gonna be good. Thank goodness. Finally the anesthesiologist comes in, and I was in so much pain and I didn't even care. I was like, just please just get this in me, please. So finally, you know, they bend you over, the nurse is holding you. I remember my whole body was just like shaking. My whole body was like this while he was doing it because I was in so much pain. And thank goodness that thing kicked in so quickly. So by the time that my husband came back in the room, I was laying there and I was happy as could be. Thank God. So I'm sitting there everything is kicked in. I'm nice and relaxed now. I feel good. I'm ready to have this baby now that I don't feel all the pain. And I'm talking to my husband and I'm talking to the nurses, and the nurse is coming. She has my legs up. She's checking because he's literally about to come out soon. And I start laughing about something that she said, and she goes, "Oh my God, stop, stop." And I was like, "What?" And she goes, he's coming out. Like, I gotta go get the doctor. Don't do anything yet. Wait. Don't laugh because he's coming out. And I was like, "What?" So the doctor comes in, and immediately she was like, "Oh yeah, he's coming. Put those legs up, let's go." And it probably took I think with him, it was like 3 pushes. I mean, 1, 2, 3, and then he was like, woo! He came right out. No problems at all. I did rip though, because he came out so quickly. But so he came out, I ripped, so she had to stitch me up, you know, laid him on my tummy, and oh y'all, I mean, that whole experience, I remember thinking like not one thing was the same compared to my first. And the pain, all I kept thinking was, I can't. That pain is horrible. I don't know how women do this with no drugs. Like, I can't. And I remember looking at my husband going, "I thought I was gonna die." And he goes, "I did too. I didn't think you were gonna make it." I was like, "I didn't think so." Man, but once they gave me that epidural, I was happy. I was able to talk and laugh, and again, y'all, I was able to feel where he was. I felt how fast he came out, but I didn't have the pain, so that's what I loved about it. But the thing that sucked was he came out so fast, so I ripped really bad. I couldn't get, you know, cut nice and neat. So the stitches were wonky, I guess. Like, they were all, my doctor was like, "Look, it's kind of jagged, and there is a couple pieces of skin that I'm not going to be able to save," pretty much is what she was saying. Like, they're going to die off, so, because it's so thin, I can't sew up such thin pieces. I was like, "Oh, okay, great. So when they'll heal, we'll just see what it looks like down there." After that, like, great, everything's all jacked up. That happens again, y'all. The healing was great. I really didn't have a whole lot of problems. That was pretty much close to the first time, other than, you know, the stitches, they hurt and they suck. Healing from that. He breastfed really well. He was my hungry baby, always hungry. He was a good latcher. The only thing with him is I didn't go very long with him because he ate so much that my nipples started to bleed from pumping and from him eating and trying to keep up with his appetite. So eventually I was like, I can't do it, and I just quit and let him do the formula to keep up his appetite. And what's funny, y'all, is that kid to this day is still like that. Like, he will eat 24/7 all day long. He is always hungry. It's crazy. I did not get postpartum depression with him, but yeah, that was pretty much the birth story with him. It was very eventful, very crazy, and very different from the first one. So I was not prepared for that. Okay, so now moving on to baby number 3. That is my only daughter. Her name is Jade. She is 2 years old. She just turned 2 years old. The second and the third baby are about 3.5 years apart, and she was a surprise. So yeah, it was the day after Christmas. My husband and I stayed up late to watch a movie, and we had a couple shots of tequila, and I swear, y'all, it always is that tequila for me. We don't drink very much, and I don't drink hardly at all. And every once in a while when we do, you know, my husband and I, we like tequila. So we took a couple shots of tequila that night. I wasn't on birth control because I was trying to regulate myself somehow. Again, y'all, dealing with all those problems that I talked about in the beginning of this video. Every time I have a baby, I don't have any problems, but then after I have the baby, all that stuff comes back, and it keeps happening and happening, and they still can't figure out what's wrong with me. I still go to other doctors trying to figure out what happens, because we thought maybe, my one doctor was like, well, maybe after you have a baby, your body will like reset itself and then you won't have those problems, or maybe they'll be different. And it's never been that way. It's literally like, it's almost like my body goes on pause when I'm pregnant, and then when I have the baby, it all comes back again. Like, it starts over. So I remember I wasn't on birth control at the time. They were doing some other kind of tests on me, I think, to figure out what's wrong and what they could help me, how they could help me. And I remember that night, you know, one thing leads to another, and we had our fun. And then at the end, I remember thinking like, oh crap, we didn't use any protection. Hopefully. But again, I was like, well, you know, with my second, it took me 8 months to get pregnant. Like, one time with no protection, I really doubt anything's gonna happen, because it didn't happen like that before. So again, I start to feel these symptoms coming on, and I'm like, uh-oh. Of course, I take my pregnancy test, it's positive. I remember this time around, I surprised my husband, because obviously it was a surprise to me as well, but I was super excited because I wanted a big family. I knew that he was gonna freak out because he was not ready, but really neither of us were ready. When can you ever be ready for a baby, really? Even when we were trying, it was still crazy and all of that. But anyways, so I surprised him and I put them in a box or something and told him to come. I was in the bathroom and I told him to come and open this box for me or something like that. And I remember him opening them and he was like, "You're lying. No, this is not real." And I was like, "Babe, it's really real." And he goes, "Are you joking? Are these fake ones?" And I was like, "No, I swear they're not pranks. Like, this is for real." And he was like, "Oh God, oh my gosh, what are we gonna do?" My husband, like, he freaked out for real. And I said, "I don't know, but it's happening." And he was like, "Well, okay, here we go." So with her, especially finding out that it was a girl, it really was a lot for us because neither of us were ready for girl. Both of us have always wanted lots of boys, and I've always been afraid to have a girl just because girls come with a lot. I mean, I'm a girl, so I know, like, a lot of emotions and hormones and all the things you go through during high school and middle school, and it's just a lot. And so I thought, I don't really want a girl because I feel like it's just too much. I'm terrified. And my husband's terrified because he's the daddy and he doesn't want her to be around any boys or anybody. Very protective, so he was scared as well. So that was a whole different kind of pregnancy and dynamic, and just everything was different. I also did not gain a whole lot of weight with her. I remember with hers, that was the one time that I ever felt prepared to have a baby. Like, I had cleaned the house, I had done the nursery, I had gotten the bags ready, like everything that I really wanted to have done before baby got here was done. And so I remember just thinking, now I'm just waiting for her arrival, and I have nothing left to do. And so I was doing like busy work. Like, I had already cleaned the house and done stuff, but I was like, well, let me just clean some more, let me like do this over here. And I remember doing those things, and I started feeling cramping, and I would feel a little bit of cramping, and then I would be fine, and then I'd feel a little cramp and I'd be fine. And I remember the boys were running around and playing and doing their thing, and I think all my kids are home, so they're in the other room. So if you hear Jade crying, she's going through her terrible twos right now. She has a lot of emotions and they're all coming out. So I'm sorry if you guys can hear them, her crying or the boys fighting and being loud. That's a house with a bunch of kids. I don't really get a whole lot of times where it's quiet. Anyways, but I remember, I think I put Abel down for a nap, Georgie was playing, and I was really starting to feel him. So I thought, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and get ready in case this is the time. I wanna be ready. I wanna have my clothes on and get my bag ready. I wanna have my makeup on, all of that. So I got ready for the day. They started getting a little more, because I remember sitting, like kneeling down in the bathroom, trying to breathe through them. And that's when I called my husband. I was like, hey, I think you need to come home. I definitely think this is the time. They're starting to get more intense. And then I called my girlfriend, one of my best friends, to come and watch the boys for us when we would go to the hospital. That way the boys could stay here with somebody, and then my mom and my sister were going to meet us at the hospital because they always, you know, want to be there for it. So and I do remember that time around I had my other friend coming. She's a photographer, and she was going to do the hospital pictures, the labor and delivery pictures, and then afterwards. And so I was trying to, you know, keep up with her and letting her know, like, hey, this is going on, or this is going on, this is how I'm feeling, I think we're going to be going soon, and letting her know all those details so that she could be at the hospital in time. And so my husband came home, and I had already had everything ready, so he just changed his clothes. We got everything in the car, and it was kind of the same deal with Abel. Like, I think they were 8 minutes apart, because I told myself this time around I'm leaving at 8 minutes apart, like I'm not waiting. They were 8 minutes apart. By the time we got in the car, they were 5 minutes apart, so it jumped quite a bit. They weren't to 1, but it did jump to 5. And I remember feeling the pain, but remembering it from the first time. So I don't know if it's because I'd already gone through it. I knew what to expect pain wise. It was still super painful, but it wasn't like the first time around that I felt those contractions. So we get to the hospital, they do their check-in, they get you into triage. They go to check me, and I'm about, I think I was like 6 or 7 centimeters dilated. They're like, all right, you know, let's go ahead, let's get you in the room. They get me hooked up in the room, you know, they're talking to me, they're doing the IVs and everything. My friend that's the photographer, she shows up, my mom, my sister show up. we're talking, we're hanging out, and then I really start to feel those contractions. And I remember thinking, like, when can I get the epidural? Because I would really like to do that sooner than later. I don't want it to be like the last time. And so the nurses were great. She was like, okay, we're gonna have him come soon. He's gonna be here in a minute. I went, okay. And it was definitely more chill. I was definitely feeling the contractions, but it wasn't as frantic and crazy as it was with my second. Once they really started kicking in, I think I was close to 8 centimeters and I was really starting to feel it. And she got the anesthesiologist in there. He gave me the epidural and I'm laying there, and I don't know if it's because he gave me the epidural, I don't know what happened, but I swear that those contractions just like shot up. Like, they really started getting painful. And I felt like it took way longer for the epidural to finally kick in. And then when it did kick in, one of my sides was like completely numb, like I could not feel a thing. And my other side, my right side I think it was, I could feel quite a bit. Like, it wasn't fully numb yet, but it was definitely number. Like, it wasn't like it only worked on one side. I could still feel it not being so painful, but I could still feel things. And I kept thinking, like, why is it so much stronger on one side than the other? I've never had that problem before. And so I kept telling the nurse that. I was like, I can feel it on this side. I feel like tightness and pressure, and just, so she told me to lay on that side that was hurting, so that, I guess it's supposed to help it, you know, gravity, it's supposed to help it go further to that side so that the medicine can work on that side. And we kept doing that and it would help a little bit, but then I could still feel things. And I was like, oh gosh, please tell me it's not one of those cases where it doesn't work. What am I gonna do? I don't want to push a baby out with no medicine. Like, I don't want to. But I kept thinking, like, well, the one side's super numb, which is not the best feeling. Like, I like the epidural because the times that I've had it, my body was numb down there, but not so much to where literally nothing, that you could feel nothing. I've always been to the point where everything was numb enough to not feel the pain, but I could still like move my legs. This time around, that left side, I couldn't move my leg. Like, I couldn't even feel it. I couldn't feel my hip, I couldn't feel my leg, I couldn't feel any of that. Right side, kind of numb, but I could still feel something, and I was telling my husband that and everybody else that. I was like, oh gosh, what are we gonna do? They were like, okay, well, we're gonna get ready to push, but we actually need to give you this other injection in your IV, which was for an infection, or, you know, to make sure that the baby didn't get the infection. She said, but after we give this to you, we have to wait an hour and then we can start pushing. And I was like, okay, well, I've already got the epidural. I mean, I can feel a little bit on the right side, but it's not that bad. So we were able to do that. I waited an hour. So I definitely feel like with hers, it was definitely quick once I started having her. But that time period of getting the epidural and then waiting an hour or so, that is the longest I've ever had to wait from getting the epidural to having the baby. I never had to do that before. Got the epidural, waited about an hour, hour and a half for that medicine, and then we started pushing and we had everybody there. It was like one of the best experiences, especially with the photographer there, getting to get all of those captures. And I remember she came out quick, just like my second. I mean, it was like a push, out real fast. So fast that my friend that's the photographer, Jen, she was like, I could barely get a picture of her coming out. She goes, usually you get, you know, the head pops out and then the shoulders and then the body. And she was like, I went to take the first picture of you pushing and she was already out. And so I had to click like really fast to try to get another one of her out of your body, of you birthing her. So that was crazy. I mean, she came really fast. And because she came so fast, I ripped, but this time I ripped up. So I don't know how that happens, y'all, but it was horrible. Ripping up is way worse than ripping down. So that was another thing that I had to get stitches for. I've had stitches every single one of my babies being born. So I'm gonna need some reconstruction down there someday. And y'all, when she came out screaming, like her high-pitched scream. Oh my goodness. Miss Drama Queen over here. And I remember her nurse, the baby's nurse, was this guy, and he was so cool and he was so sweet, and he just looked and he goes, dang, she's got some spice in her. I was like, oh my gosh, she really was. And she's like that, I mean, especially now with the terrible twos, but that is Jade for sure. She's our little drama queen. Everything is a big feeling, everything is big. Oh, it's just crazy, but that's how she was. She came out screaming her head off. And you know what's weird is that's the first time, the doctor even said the umbilical cord was really short with her, and I don't know why or how that happens. She couldn't even get her out and then lay her on me and then cut the cord. She had to hold her up while my mom cut the cord because the cord was so short. She couldn't like pull her out on there. I don't know. I'd never seen or heard that before. They put her on me, and then the doctor started stitching me up, and this was a different doctor that was on call, and she was like, when I was stitching you, I've seen some other stitches. And I said, yeah, from my other two. And she goes, well, this one I'm gonna have to kind of reconstruct a little bit because since it went up, it went through one of my lips, and so it has to, like, again, thin skin, some of the thin skin they can't sew. Again, y'all, it's crazy. It's just crazy. And I remember just like, well, whatever, it's happened before, I'll just deal with it. Thanks. Do your best, please, but I get it. And I'm so happy that I was able to have those labor and delivery photos. I thought for sure that she was going to be our last baby, and so I really wanted those pictures. I've never had labor and delivery pictures before, and you know, those newborn photos of those first moments with baby and with daddy and with family there. I had my best friend, my sister, and my mom in the room with my husband. It was the best. I cherish those pictures. They were so great. And then she latched on really well for breastfeeding. She would fall off on here and there because she'd fall asleep, but other than that, she was great at breastfeeding, and I was able to go 6 months with her breastfeeding, and that was probably the best breastfeeding journey and experience I've ever had, and I loved it. I loved it, loved it. I even got to do when we ended our breastfeeding journey, I got to do a little photo shoot with this photographer where she had a couple of other moms that were doing the same thing, and all of our babies were at different ages, and just showcasing how beautiful it is to breastfeed and that moment and the bond that you get with your baby and just the magic of it, and then also the sadness of ending that. And I don't know, it was really cool. I loved that so much. Now with my daughter, I did end up having postpartum depression, and I gained a lot of weight after I had her. I barely gained anything while I was pregnant, but it was like a month or two into postpartum, it was like the pounds were just getting piled on. I don't even know how. Like, I ended up gaining like 50 pounds after I had her, and I think that definitely did not help my postpartum depression. I also think I got it with her because of having a girl. I feel like when you have a girl and you are a girl, that's double and triple hormones that you already have in your body. They're now doubled because you have a daughter that's growing, so you have to give that to her. And I feel like my hormone levels were just off the charts after having her. The only other thing that happened with her that was kind of scary was when I had her, I bled a lot. I remember the doctor, when she was on my chest and she was sewing me up, she told me, she said, you have lost a lot of blood. And she was like, so we're gonna monitor you, you know, in the next day or so while you're here, because you did lose quite a bit of blood during this delivery. And you know, at the time I was like, okay, you know, oh, I mean, I feel fine. They didn't have to, you know, it's not like I started passing out and they had to rush in or do anything. She just mentioned that, and I said, okay. And then I do remember while I was in the hospital healing, you know, you have the pads that you sit on while they get all the rest of the stuff out of your body to make sure you don't, you know, get an infection, and they come and they push on your stomach to push all of that out. I remember like huge blood clots. I mean, like they looked huge, like this big to this big, coming out, lots of blood just constantly. I was constantly having to change the pad, and then once they set me up with my underwear and the big pads on them, I mean, I was changing my pads frequently. And I remember them telling me, if you're changing your pad every hour, then that's not good. Like, that's way too much blood loss. But it started to drop off. Before I left, I wasn't bleeding as much, so I thought everything was fine. And about a week into postpartum with her at home, I remember laying on the couch and feeling achy, like my whole body was feeling achy and weak, like you would if you were gonna get sick or get the flu or something. And my joints were aching, and I was like, oh God, I don't feel good. And even though you're not supposed to submerge into a bathtub that early on, you're supposed to wait the 6 weeks before you can submerge your whole body into the bathtub. But I was like, I just know that if I could just get my body in the bath, I would feel better, because that's what I've usually done. If I have any kind of cramps or joints hurt or something, I get in the bathtub and I feel better. And so I thought, well, I can't submerge, but I'm gonna put a little bit of water in, and I'm just gonna like kneel in it so that my knees and my ankles, my legs are in the water. but I won't like sit down in the water. And I remember doing that, and then I Googled it, and it said that if you like sit down in the water for a minute and then get up, that you're fine as long as you don't submerge your body under the water for longer than 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that. Then you won't get, you know, any kind of infection or anything. So I was like, all right. So I would sit down for a minute and then I would get up, and then I would like sit down and then I would get up, and then I was leaning over the bathtub and I thought, okay, I think I just need to get out now and just lay down in the bed for a little bit. And next thing I know, y'all, my whole body just starts shaking, and I start freaking out. And it got so bad to where my jaw got clenched shut, like I couldn't talk, so I couldn't even yell out to my husband like, hey, help me, help me. And all I kept thinking was like, just get out of the bathtub and crawl in the bed and get under the covers, because partially I was like feeling cold, but at the same time I wasn't cold. I was just uncontrollably shaking so bad that I couldn't even open my mouth. And then I started thinking like, am I having a seizure? Like I've never had a seizure, I don't know what that's like, but what is happening to my body right now? And I mean, I remember it took everything out of me to try to get my leg out of the bathtub, my other leg, and then, you know, walk and move to get to the bed. And I remember just crawling into the bed and just putting all the covers over me up to my head, and my whole body was just, I mean, I was just shaking uncontrollably. And my husband finally walked in and he saw me, and I looked at him and I was trying to talk. I was like this, and I could not open my mouth to talk to him. And he's holding our newborn daughter, looking at me like, oh my God. And he goes, do I need to call an ambulance? And I kept shaking my head because I was like, no, I don't want to go to the hospital. I am not a fan of hospitals, other than if you have a baby, because you're always there for hours and hours, and I feel like they barely do anything for me. They always tell me to call my doctor, and I was like, I really don't want to do that. I kept thinking like, if I could just get warm enough and stop shaking, I'll be okay. And so I would try to calm my mind. I kept thinking, don't think about it. Like the more you think about it, it's just gonna make everything clench shut more. So I kept thinking like, think of other things, try to calm your mind, go to sleep. Just go to sleep, Jessica, and your body will relax. And finally it was like I would get relaxed enough and everything would stop. And then I would open my eyes, and then all of a sudden it was like it would happen again, and then I would stop, and then it would happen again. And the next thing I know, I would get too hot, so then I'd throw all the covers off. I'd stop shaking, and I would feel so hot, like you have a fever. I had a fever. Like it felt like the heat was just coming through my neck and my head and my ears. I would get so hot, I'd throw the blankets off, and then I'd start shaking again uncontrollably. And so I'd put the blankets back on me, and I would keep shaking, keep shaking. And so my husband had to take my daughter, and in between all of that, I was trying to pump milk because my boobs are getting engorged and I can't breastfeed her because I can't control my body. So I would try to pump as much as I could to give to him to feed her, and then he would come and check on me all the time. And finally, throughout the night, I got to the point where I wasn't shaking anymore, but then I would sweat and get really hot, and then I would get cold, and then I would get hot, and then I would get cold. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. I was like, am I getting sick? And then we were thinking to keep Jade away from me because we didn't want her to get sick, if that's what it was. And I called my doctor right in the morning whenever they were open, called my doctor, and I told her what was happening. My husband told her. She immediately was like, it sounds like your body went into shock because you lost too much blood. Because I had still been losing, even when I came home from the hospital for that whole week, I was still losing a lot of blood because it was coming out on the pad. She said, literally your body went into shock. So I had to start getting on, they sent me a prescription for iron, and you know, told me all these things to do. And after that night, I never had it again. It was definitely one of the scariest moments I've ever had, especially having a baby. I've never had that problem before. I've never bled that much before. I've never had that problem before. I've never felt that way before. I did not know. I remember when I was shaking so bad and just, you know, talking to God and getting scared and thinking, oh my God, I'm gonna die. Like, am I gonna die? Is this it? Like, is something so bad happening to me? I'm gonna die. I'm leaving my husband with 3 kids, newborn baby girl. But it was definitely very scary. I don't ever want to go through that again. I do not wish that on anybody. And then after that, I had postpartum depression with her. And there was a lot of things, like I said, I think hormones and the weight gain. It was just a lot. You know, taking care of 3 kids and trying to figure that out and being tired and all of that. So with her, I definitely went through it. But since I'd gone through it before, I understood it, and I was able to get help sooner and know how to go through it instead of just being like, I don't know what this is and I don't know what to do. That probably, I think postpartum depression with her lasted about a year. And then after that, I was okay. Then I got pregnant with Knox a year and a half later. So I was going through all that for about a year, and then I only had about 6 months, and then I got pregnant again. And again, he was also a surprise. It was another one of those oopsies nights. This time around, I decided to not get on any kind of birth control after Jade. I was like, I'm not even gonna do it. I'm just gonna let my body try to figure this shit out by itself, because I'm tired of the pain, I'm tired of all these problems, and I feel like we try to rush in and fix it too soon. I feel like if I just let my body do its thing, maybe I'll be okay. And so I didn't have any kind of protection from a pregnancy that way. And then again, one of those nights, we have like me and hubby cuddle night, and totally forgot. My husband always says, he goes, I was too lazy to walk into the other room to grab a condom. And that one time just was the perfect timing, and I got pregnant with baby boy. Again, y'all, like, neither of us are ready, especially not for 4 kids, but I've always wanted a big family, so I was excited, but at the same time I was scared. And if you guys have seen my pregnancy announcement video, my husband and I went to Round Top for, I don't even remember what it was. I don't know if it was just to get away for the weekend or if it was an anniversary thing. I can't remember. But we went there to just me and him be together, and the whole time I was feeling sick. Like, I was feeling nauseous and all these problems. I was getting car sick super easy. On the way home, he said, you couldn't be pregnant, right? And I remember thinking, oh my God, am I pregnant? What? And both of us just like freaking out. Oh God, what? And I said, well, what if I am? He goes, well, I mean, if you are, like, I would love it. You know, we're gonna have a baby, that's great. He goes, but at the same time, I don't think we need another one. I was like, yeah, that's kind of how I feel, but I've always wanted 4 or 5. But now that I have 4, I'm done, y'all. No more. I'm done with 4. But yeah, so that's how I found out. And really from finding out I was pregnant with him is really where my channel, my YouTube channel, kind of took off from, because I was doing videos here and there before that, you know, trying my hand in this whole YouTube channel world. That was really when it took off, and that was when I knew I've always loved to share pregnancy stuff with all my friends and my girlfriends, because I was like the first one to get pregnant, so I always had all the stuff that I've gone through they hadn't gone through yet, so they would ask me. And so I always knew I wanted to share about this kind of stuff, and it was like when I got pregnant, I was like, and I was already started my YouTube channel, I thought, this is perfect. I can share this whole journey, and hopefully I can reach out to other mamas and they can learn from things that I've done, or I can help anybody out in that way. I loved pregnancy, and I loved the whole experience, and I want other moms to love it. I know that there's definitely parts of it that are just not the most fun, and they're very hard to go through. But I always hated it when I would hear other moms talk about how horrible their experience was, and this and that, and all the bad things, that they didn't feel pretty, and they didn't this and that. And I thought, oh, y'all are missing out. Like, it is one of the best things to go through. It's beautiful, and it's crazy, and it's hard, and there's just so much to it, but it's just so much fun, and it's just the best experience. And I want other moms to feel the same. I want everybody else to feel the way that I have being pregnant. When I'm pregnant, I feel beautiful, I feel comfortable in my own skin, and I love the feeling of the baby inside and that bond that you get, and then everything after that, just all of those things. I want y'all to feel that way too, and so I hope that my videos have been able to do that for you. That is kind of how this whole thing started with baby Knox's journey into this world. So fast forward to getting ready to have baby boy. He by the way, I was 40 weeks and 1 day pregnant when I had him. So he was 1 day over his due date. All my other 3 babies were born the 37th or 38th week of pregnancy. So all my other kids have been like 2 weeks early. This baby, he went past that, and I couldn't believe it, because usually they say the more you have, the quicker they come and all of that. My doctor was even like, this is crazy, because all your other kids have come at 2 weeks. We thought for sure 37 weeks. I was freaking out at 37 weeks pregnant, thinking, oh, he's gonna be here any minute. And then he ended up going past his due date, which is crazy, but it was so perfect. And I think it was something that God did, because he knew that my heart needed a little bit more time with him in my belly, going through this experience for the last time, taking in every day and every moment. I think that's why it happened, for a reason. Anyway, so he was born over his due date, and with him, I was very in tune with my body, because, you know, again, going through it before, I already knew all the signs to look for, like losing your mucus plug and the way that you feel. Sometimes, usually you feel like really good before you feel the labor start. So with him, I had started getting cramping all night, but it wasn't anything like a contraction. And then my husband went to work the next morning, and I was getting up, I was getting ready for the day. I had Jade running around the house, the boys were in school. I started feeling them get a little bit more, and I thought, oh, I think this is it. I think this is definitely the day. And so I texted my husband, and he had just left for work, so he literally had pulled up to his job when I called him and said, come back, I'm definitely sure that this is it, and I'm getting kind of scared and nervous. And he said, okay. So he turned right back around to come home. And I was a little kind of nervous about it. One, because it was my last, and I was going through this for the last time, and I was just trying to take in every moment and remember every little thing. But also just because I'd already gone through it so many times that I know what to expect. So then I'm expecting things, or I'm like waiting for these certain things to happen. For example, like the pain to get worse or things like that. So anyways, that's one of the reasons why I wanted him to come home, because I thought I have my daughter here, and if this pain gets really bad and she needs me and I can't get up to help her out, you know, I want to have him here. My mom thankfully lives literally down the street from me, so she was able to come over and get her while the boys were at school so that we could go. And then obviously, if you guys have seen my labor and delivery vlog, then you've seen what happens when all of that was going on. And I remember I was timing my contractions that morning, and they were around like 6 minutes apart, so they were already way too close for what I really wanted, because I think they went from 8 to 6. It was like 8 minutes to 6 minutes, and then they went to 5 minutes. And I remember getting in the car with him and telling him, like, we need to go soon because I feel like they're gonna get to 3 minutes, like, quick. I remember getting to the hospital, you know, they check me and they're like, yep, you're at 6, I think it was 6 centimeters or 7 centimeters dilated. The contractions were definitely, like, they were hurting me for sure this time around. The nurses are hooking me up, they're doing their thing, and I kept telling, like, you know, I want the epidural, like, as soon as you can get it, I'm down to get it. I don't want to feel any pain, none of that. And she was like, oh yeah, for sure. You know, they bring the epidural, the anesthesiologist in to get the epidural, and by then I was really starting to feel the contractions, like they were getting bad for sure, and I was trying to breathe through them and get through that. And so they give me the epidural, and I'm just waiting for it to kick in. Like, I'm like, all right, it's gonna kick in, everything's gonna be great, it's gonna be like last time. I'm gonna be laughing, I'm gonna be talking to my husband. This time around, especially with COVID, before COVID thing, we had already decided that since this was our last, we wanted it to just be me and him. No family, nobody in the room, just us. But then COVID happened, and so that kind of, you know, it was perfect. I didn't have to tell anybody, hey, you can't come, because they couldn't come because of COVID. So it kind of worked out for us that way. We're laying there, I'm waiting for the epidural to start kicking, and I start to feel it kicking in on one side, but not the other side. And the contractions are still, you know, they're coming. It's every minute now. Every minute I'm getting a contraction, and they're getting worse and worse and worse. And then I keep trying to tell the nurse, like, hey, this isn't working. Like, this side is still hurting. This side, I can tell it's starting to work, but it wasn't numb by any means. And I keep asking, you know, so I turn to one side, and then I turn to this side. Well, again, things start moving pretty quickly, and they start asking me to push, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. I just got the epidural, like, it needs to work, like, I needed to get it to work. And I remember that was the moment in my mind I started panicking, and I thought, oh my God, I'm really gonna have to do this. No medicine, and I can't. And this is my last baby, and this is how I'm gonna go out. This is how I'm gonna go out with my last baby. Oh my God, of all the times to have it not work, it would be my last experience. If you guys have seen that video, like I said, you know, I was in a lot of pain. I just kept thinking, Jessica, you're here now, and if they tell you to push, that means we're there, and they can't do anything else. Like, they can't give me another epidural or anything like that. And I prayed to God, and I was like, God, please give me the strength. Help me get through this, please, God, because I don't know if I can, but I need you to help me, because I know there's no turning back. I can't do it any other way. I can't say I don't want to do this anymore. Can you just stop everything? Because the baby's coming, and the pain is bad, but I have to do this. And I will say, you guys, that was definitely the hardest thing for me. Pushing that baby out, feeling everything hurt so bad. I will never forget it. But at the same time, knowing that I was able to do that and I lived to see another day, that I lived through that, it made me feel very empowered. It made me feel good knowing that not only have I birthed all my babies, but that I went through that experience. And it also was great to have my husband, just me and him, because it's hard for him to go through these experiences with me, and especially for him to see me like that, and to have him by my side, you know, trying to be there, being the calm one and rubbing my head, and every once in a while he would say a sweet, kind word and say, "You're doing great, babe, you're doing great." And it was definitely one of the craziest, but also one of the best experiences. I definitely don't ever want to do that again. I did it once, I'm done. I did it once without the medicine. I don't want to do it ever again. But that, y'all, it was, oh my God, it was bad. I mean, I just remember feeling every single one, and it was like this one part on my side that I kept feeling. I don't know if it was his like hand or his foot, but every time the contraction would happen, it gets hard, your stomach gets hard, and then you have to push through that, and then I didn't even know how to explain it. It was just like the craziest thing. I remember when his head got there, because I could feel the pressure and how I felt how big down there was. And the doctor came in and, you know, they're like, okay, push, 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 get him through. And I'm thinking, okay, I have to get, he's crowning. I have to get this head out. I got to get the head out and then I'll be fine. And I remember finally getting his head out, and I felt a little bit relief, and I thought, oh, thank goodness I got his head out. And then they go, okay, now do the same thing. We just got to get his shoulders out. And I remember thinking in my head, oh my God, his shoulders are way bigger than his head. I just pushed his head out and that was hard. How am I going to get the shoulders out? And afterwards, I told my husband that. He goes, I was thinking the same thing. Like, I feel like you always think, oh, the baby's crowning, like that's the worst part. But really, the shoulders have to come out too. Like, it's the head and then the neck and then the shoulders. So it was definitely a lot. And I felt a lot. That feeling when baby comes out completely and they put him on my chest is just, that part alone, y'all, is just, it takes all the pain away. It's just the best. When you see your baby for the first time, if they're crying and you're holding them, they feel their hot body on you and their warmth and their life on you. I just, can't. I just love it. I love it so much. I did rip with him as well. I felt like with him, the pushes, I had to push more times than I did the others because I didn't have the epidural. I think that my body was way more tensed up pushing him out, feeling the pain. Whereas with the epidural, you don't feel as much. So when you're pushing, they can just kind of like come out easier because your body isn't so tensed and stressed. So I definitely feel like it took longer pushes with him because of that. But I did rip with him as well. Again, up again. I ripped up this time again. Still, like I said before, it's all jacked up. But after that, with him, I actually bled hardly at all. I don't know how that happened, but after the first like 2 pad changes, there was just a couple drops on the pads. Even when I would come home and change my pads, it would only be like a little bit here and there. So that was crazy. I did not get postpartum depression with him. I haven't had it so far, so I'm super grateful for that. And he has been the best at latching. I mean, y'all, when he in the hospital, he was ready to eat right away. And if you guys have seen my what to expect during labor and delivery video, I talk about breastfeeding right away, the golden hour that they talk about, where that first hour after you have them should be about bonding and then baby breastfeeding. And a lot of people want to just force the baby on the boob immediately and just make them eat. The best thing you could do is just let that instinct happen. And when you're holding them, if you have, you know, your chest is open, skin to skin, and they can feel, you will see your baby start rooting around their head like this, trying to find something to eat. And then you just move your nipple close to their face and they will find it themselves and be able to latch on. It's almost like a newborn puppy. Like, have you ever seen them try to feed on mama? They find the nipple. They don't have mom shove them on there. That's what I did with Knox. He was ready to eat like within seconds of being born. I put him on my chest and we had that skin to skin, and he was already like moving his head around. So I just moved him closer to my nipple and he immediately latched on, and his latch has always been the best. I mean, I was so grateful. He latched on perfectly. He fed perfectly. He did everything great when it comes to breastfeeding, and which is really good because that really helps. You're starting it off on a good note. And then, you know, to be able to keep going with it, it just, I think that's one of the reasons why we've been able to go a lot longer. He loves to eat, but he also can latch really well and feed really well. So he doesn't like fall asleep and then not eat, which is one of the problems I had with some of my other babies. With him, he eats and eats and eats and eats. He gets all the milk out and then he falls asleep. So it's great. Yeah, y'all, so that's about it for all my 4 birth stories. You know, there are some similarities in some of them, but then they're all totally different at the same time. So I hope you guys learned something and, you know, took some of the things that I've gone through, and maybe you will go through some of those as well, and so you'll kind of know what to look out for. Or maybe you were just curious, and that's great too. I love, you know, storytelling and telling our stories about our babies and pregnancies and my postpartums and all of those things. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys on our next one. Bye.